Sorry. A head's too big. How's that? Okay. So I started writing to replace sketching and drawing because I was more interested in evoking a mood or a tone than defining a form. So it's kind of a tool for me, and I really enjoy it. So yeah, what I'm going to read you are sketches. They're not like finished pieces of writing. Okay, so March 25th, 2015. It is a large vessel with a support structure that is parabolic in shape, an old satellite sitting on sandbags. It's been leveled perfectly so as not to give false results. It holds an undisclosed amount of the purest water, and a thin layer of mineral oil floats on this water, sealing it in, protecting it from evaporation. These thresholds can be observed existing in parallel due to molecular weight, and they fall naturally into a layered system we might wrongly attribute to some kind of inherent ordering of the universe. On the clear field of oil rests a hollow black glass object. It is not an orb, but it's more of a round, flattened shape, like a lens, except that this shining, smooth, black lens sits in place of the pupil in this liquid model of the eye. It floats untethered in the pool, occasionally being drawn to the edge and taking a slow lap, tracing the limbal ring periphery. These movements may have meaning that can be interpreted. These movements are probably thoughts and events. This pupil was made from volcanic obsidian that already had settled into a shape, and now it is confused natural matter. This pupil still means pupil, but this pupil reflects and transmits like lens. This whole setup means eye, but this is no orifice for the entry of light, no automatic aperture, no focusing through refraction. It is opaque reflection. It is a one-eyed gaze. It is to be watched. It is looking for a receiver, an interpreter of the information it is. It would like itself submitted to translation. Okay, this one is April 7th, 2015. The vault fills with the sound of grinding rocks. An invoked bunker vibrates with the pleasing whine of a motor. The smooth plane of the surface calls for event, says buoyancy and differential density, natural law. And here is the interim connecting these realms. Here in the interim is observation of matter of fact. There are windows in the roof and beams brace the ceiling. Everything is elevated from the ground. At night, they turn off the lights, and nothing else rests except the pulverizer. It is a model, a proposition, a suggestion. What about a creature with no discernible brain or nervous system rolling ocean sand into a ball, into a delicately tuned white pearlescent orb? What about a scarab rolling a perfect ball of shit across the desert sand as the round red sun traverses sky, horizon to horizon, rising on ocean and setting on desert, or rising on desert and setting on ocean, depending. This horizon, a stratospheric parallel that converges against formulae into an endless unbroken ring. The orbital periphery of sight settling on the helm of a sphere, if you were to cut into it. Rock tumbling is to blank as blank is to pearl making. The immaculate round on slow rotation duty, secure the perimeter. So the next one I'm going to read is an excerpt of an excerpt. It's not published in the issue of novel. It's short. It's called Dusk. The longer piece is called Dusk. To speed up the dissolution of the material earth into small parts undetectable to the governing human senses. What a great relief to the system. You grind up rocks and you can only barely smell them. If we all set about to really have at it, it could all be gone in several thousand years. Lines forming to volunteer for the dust core, chewing gravel into sand, into mud, into dust, into the great human achievement. If you had rich parents, you'd be outfitted with serrated metal prosthetic teeth. There would be a black market dealing in repurposing discarded sets of these gnashing dentures for the middle class. The mass of poor would use their natural naked teeth, their enamel mixing with the particulates as they chewed. All would be fed mush. The generals would only be women, and they would sit behind heavy desks on chairs designed to be fixed in a permanent reclining position. When the project reached culmination, when the nation's blank is agreed upon, the few humans who refused Dusk Corps service would be released from their holding areas, and all the dust generated by the Corps would be trampled upon by the stampeding multitudes. The population having exponentially increased itself during countless generations of close captivity and inbreeding. Such a mass event would cause the fine particulate to rise into the atmosphere, blocking out the sun, and later, when sufficient unrest had occurred as to send the dust to the highest reaches of the stratosphere, the blank was to be deployed. At blank, all of the loose dust would fuse into a hard lava-like crust because of the instantaneous high heat. This would preserve the memory of the temporary human occupation of Earth forever, an instant fossil monument, earthwork eco-architecture covering packaged surface, made possible only through the cooperative mass self-destruction, the great human achievement. Early Dust Corps artist renderings of the event commonly depict blank, 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 blankety blank. Helm of a great strange ship dragging through fine unseen sand deep underwater, the first indication of a nearing shore. Planet with a molten core, the great stone architecture pulverized into silt, sediment on some ocean floor. Threshold, no door. The last thing I'm going to read is called Erotic S. This thing is really hard. I wrote it this summer when I was in the desert, and it's just sort of like a stream of consciousness kind of thing. And it's meant to be seen in like a block of text, but it reads kind of like a poem. Anyway, it's called Erotic S. The next. Fantasize over the dendritic chalcedony pit, the polluted red cooling quadrant of the fictional dryhead mine, over alien, off-the-charts sterile salinity of white salt flats, prone to wet mirage, which revive the non-cognitive sexuality of the seeming dead, suggestive abiogenesis. And of course, with this in mind, it want to. Of course, it submit itself to translation, and it want it known that what could be is what is in the first place. There is no door on that threshold, no sentry, no guard, but empty chair. An unoccupied position, a proposition hypothesis, only a wide opening. The radical concept of a specific perceptual perfection, a honed functioning, a focusing of libidinal propensity to a single point, extreme concentration of attention, always an erotic notion, electrified gas burning overwhelmingly in the glass vein, the humanoid vein, violent blue plasma fork of lightning, the concupiscent abundance of energy striking this one concern, like all nerve roads lead to clit, a minor diagram of some insane sci-fi weapon of mass destruction, as trance-darkened eyes rolling back soft in the socket, multiple times, perpetuum, and engage in the innate sexuality of objects. It is a slime-greased surface. It is an inherent currency of being, a false meniscus limit border of, and rational valuation abandoned, replaced, hormonal chemical imbalance, pull from the depthless cortex, a coiled serpent, a distillation, an erotics, a readily available anti-repression, a constant state of queer peak, and so much to grind and burn, a wild expenditure, and a crushing debt, simultaneous, dissolution, reconstitution, and the same sky, azure and still pregnant with the general possible after all these singular fucks, in the early sprawling reflected in the parabolic pool of Mercury, in the shack encased telescopic space eye of the first rotating liquid lens in the world. There it is, reflecting terrestrial, an idea, witness, with boots on the ground, all the while examining the innumerable, and light years away, the technological tells the desired data, which students on a budget pay to collect for the government. This data of desire is information based on a dream. It's a theoretical stab in the dark line of inquiry so huge it must be computed into comprehension, yet remain illogic forms of exchange, and, like the named ordering of material state, we find insane description, so ambrosial drip necessary to justify the urge, the erotica of interpretation, of looking at something, the scrutiny as a solid turning on of the taps, a twisting of nipple, fetish of inquiry, of acquiring, immaterial, inorgasmic, everything body now ran rampant all over you, electric, odor of animality left on ritualistic overnight, thousands of years scraped off with a microscope slide, wielded with tender info-lust. Oh, why not? Why should it be embarrassed about knowing what it want when it want nothing? We know everything, so wisdom says. That's it. Thank you.